What's up, notJust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. Today, we are continuing the DEVember series, a month long of React Native tutorials. Today is day 18 of our series, and in today's episode, we are going to focus on one specific feature. We're going to build the Instagram Stories component that will allow us to view images in an Instagram-like way. So we're going to be able to move from a story to another, and by doing this we're going to learn how to build everything with React Native and Expo, how to navigate through different stories. We're going to learn something about time-based animation so that we can show the progress bar of the story, and also when it finishes to automatically move to the next one. And then we're going to move into a more advanced animation for the story transition, and here I'm talking about the cuboid-like page transition for different stories. We're going to use the latest version of React Native 0.73 that was launched this month, and the Expo SDK 50, which is at the moment of recording this, it's in beta. So we're going to test them out, but if you're watching the tutorial later, this should be already, everything that we're going to use should be already available. So let me quickly remind about DEVember. Every day we're doing a tutorial about React Native, focusing on one specific aspect, and everything is available here on our YouTube. All the tutorials are separate, so you can pick and choose something that is interesting to you. If you have ideas, you can submit them to our idea board. All the links you'll find in the description. And DEVember is not just about learning, it's also about giving back. During DEVember, we are organizing a fundraiser called Education for Children, during which we are supporting the efforts of Save a Children organization to provide accessible education to all children in the world. If you would like to donate to this cause, make sure to find this donate pop-up on the YouTube, and everything is set up for YouTube. Everything goes directly to Save the Children non-profit. I'd like to say thank you to Rogelio, Stewart, Sagar, Vali, Travis, and others who already donated. Anyway, hello everyone in the live chat. Hopefully my stream software connected correctly, and I see that it did. Hello Dhananjaya, how are you doing? So what we're going to use today, as I was saying, we're going to use the latest version of React Native 0.73 just because we need access to a new property that was added in the latest version, and here I'm talking about the property transform origin. Before 73, transform did not have this transform origin property and now it's available, and it allows us to change what is the center of our transformation, and it works great for rotation, for translation, and so on. So for example, in this situation, this transform origin is top. If I move it to center, which is the default one, the square will move based on the center point. That's going to be the origin. If we, however, do top, it's going to move based on the top axle. If I, for example, do an array here, top, left, 0, no? We're going to learn how to do it. Probably it wasn't like that, but it's going to help us. This transform origin is going to help us to rotate our Instagram story in a three-dimensional way. We could use the React Native CLI to initialize a React Native 0.73, but I usually like to work only in Expo, so that's why to use React Native 0.73 in Expo, we need to use the SDK version 50 or above. At the moment of recording this video, this is in beta and it was launched previous week. Haven't tested it yet, but we're gonna do that today. We're not gonna dive deep into like the updates and new things from SDK 50, but we're gonna use React Native 73 to take advantage of that transform origin. Let's go ahead and initialize a new project with using npx create expo app. We're gonna go with a template blank at beta. I'm using at beta for now to use the beta version. In your case, you can, if you're watching this when Expo SDK 50 is public, you'll be able to do template blank. For me, I still have to do beta. Let's do IG stories. Now Expo will create a new project. Hello Amir, hello Kayum. How are you doing, guys? Oi Solomon, let's go. Universe expert, Slav from Pakistatina. Hello. Pakistan, sorry. I misread that. Hello, hello. So, here we have it. Our application is ready. I'm going to open it in a Visual Studio Code. Here we have it. Let me move it a bit out of our way. I'm not gonna need the terminal anymore, so I can close it because we are going to open a terminal inside our Visual Studio Code from the top or with a shortcut. From here, let's go ahead and do npm start to start the development server. And while that is happening, let's look at package.json. Package.json, here we will see that we are using the Expo version 50, which is currently in preview, and the React Native 073, the one that we need. Perfect. Let's go ahead and from the development menu here, we can run either on Expo Go by scanning this QR code or on your local simulator or emulator. I'm gonna run it on iOS simulator. Here it should be. This is a different application I'm working on, Famify, for financial management. If you're interested, it's available Play Store and App Store. All right, anyway, here is our application. If we open app.js here, everything is working fine. It complains about something, so I can make sure to import React here, even though it's not needed anymore. So here is our application, and we are ready to get started. We are mostly going to work in this app file, and we can go ahead and start rendering something. The Instagram UI is heavily based on full screen images, right? So let's start by displaying a full screen image. In React Native, we have an image component that we can import from here. And instead of rendering a text here, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to render an image. The image needs a source, and the source will have a URI, and here we need a publicly accessible URL to display the image. I will provide you with some dummy. Where are they? Here they are. I have some vertical images. Let me define it here at the top. You can check the URL, notjust.Dev.S3, US is 2, Amazon AWS.com, vertical images 1.jpg. Now, if I provide this URI here, we are still not gonna see anything because an image needs style. And for the style, we can style them here at the bottom. So let's do styles.image. Style.image. What do we need here? We need some width. So a width can have 100% of the parent component, which is going to be 100% of the screen, and let's do the same for the height. So if we do 100, 100, our image is displayed full screen. Here for the status bar, instead of auto, maybe I can do light. Yes, now it's better. Okay, that's good. That's already a starting point of rendering one image. Let's go ahead and now create an array of images, or maybe an array of stories. Let's go ahead and do that together. Maybe we're gonna do that in a separate file just to keep our app.js clear. So let's do stories.js, and here let's start by export default an array. And what's going to be the array created of? I think the way Instagram works is we have a list of users, and every user has a list of stories. So let's actually define it as a const. So const users stories is going to be equal to an array of users. For example, user ID 1 will have some stories. Then there will be another user. Maybe he will also have an, let me see, name. If I go there, it's a username. And that user will have some stories. Then there will be another user with ID 2. Then the third one. Now, the array of stories will contain The array of stories should contain information about the stories. One story for us is going to most probably be an object with some data. For example, it's going to have the image URI. Let's paste here the dummy URI from here, like this. And if we want to add one more, we can add it here in this array. I think I will like to separate them like this. And I can add another image here. And for the third one as well, let's do 3. Let's do the same stories for this, for the other person and for the third user as well. We're only gonna change some names. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 1, 2, 3. Then we can do 4. This one is like this. Then we have 5, 6. Let's do 3, 6, and 7. Okay, so we have an array of users, and all the users have an array of stories. Let's go ahead in our app.js and import this array. Let's go ahead and do import users stories from the file that we just created called stories. We are not exporting at the moment anything here, so let's simply do, let's transform back to export default. Now, user stories, if we want to display some images, we're gonna have to look in the user stories. That's an array, so we can take the first user, and then we can look into the stories, and then we can take the first story or the first user, then .URI. Let's see, what do we see here? We should see the first story of the first user. Come on. Unexpected token in the stories. Where do I have an unexpected token? Here I forgot to add comma. Okay. Now, yes, now we see if we change to the second story, we are supposed to see the second story, then third one, and so on. Well, it doesn't have 3 stories, only 2. And the same, we can change whose users we are looking at. Okay, good. So that means that we're going to have 2 state variables. One to know who is the active user, and then what is the active story number. Let's try to add them as state variables. User index, set user index equal use state. Let's start from 0. Now let's also keep track of the story. So story index, set story index equal use state. Let's also start from 0. Now I'm going to get access only to the user by looking into the user stories at position user index that we have here. And maybe I also will take his stories. For us, easier to access them here by doing, or let's do story equal user at position story index. So now with this user and with the story, we can render the user interface. For example, the image now will be simply story, not story index, but story dot URI. Here should be user dot stories at position this one. Yeah. Okay, so now we see the story. Another thing that we can do is to render something on top of this image. For example, like the name of the person who posted it. I'm thinking whether we should use a background image or a simple image with position absolute. Let's create a view that will have the styles of a header. Styles dot header. In this view, I just want to render the name of a person, the username of the user. So user dot username. Let's give this style styles.username, and let's go ahead and style this. We're gonna have a header and we're gonna have a username. The header, let's position it absolute to be positioned on top of the image. Probably it's not gonna be rendered on top of the image because we first have to render the image so that it will be below our header. Hopefully. Top 100. Yes, we see that. So our header, let's start with a background color red just for us to see where it is. I want a width of 100% definitely, and I want probably top 0 in order to position it there, but at the same time I want the content inside it to be rendered in the safe area view. So what I can do is I can transform the header, or maybe I can use here a safe area view from React Native that is supposed to add some padding in order for the text to be rendered below the safe area view. Now it works properly. Safe area view header. Now if I'm gonna add something to the header like padding, that's gonna not work as we expect. Padding 10. No, it's gonna work. Yeah. Okay, so we need padding 10. And for the username, I'm gonna do color white, font weight, bold. Maybe that's it. I'll remove the background color red. Perfect. But maybe I can leave here and something like a 0, 0, 0 with some opacity, like 0.5. That looks okay. It can be improved by adding a linear gradient instead of a hard background there. I see that Instagram is actually not even displaying the story full screen. It displays even the story inside the safe area view. And everything in the background is black. If you do this with image and videos, it will be legendary. I plan to do it only with images, but we have covered a lot in this series about videos, so it wouldn't be very complicated to integrate videos as well. When would you make one with React Native Skia, and how to think about using that with animation math? Actually, I was looking today for Skia, and it's hard for me to come up with an interesting idea. I don't know. I'm still thinking about a good tutorial for that. Maybe like building Instagram stories with being able to drag and drop stickers on top of images, texts, adding styles, adding filters. Yeah, I think like a best example for React Native Skia would be the story builder in a way. Wait, you can do that with safe area view? What exactly? The safe area view, yeah, well, simply is a component that adds padding on top and the bottom depending on the height of a notch. So on some devices it's going to be 0 because they don't have a notch. On some devices it's going to be as long as the notch is. So it doesn't have to be only on the root view, it can be anywhere. But I'm thinking whether to actually put this one here because that's how, maybe not even there, but yeah, let's try. Safe area view. Style flex 1 and background color black. Actually, I don't need this container, so I'll move this to the container and simply send it to the top safe area view. And I don't even need the maybe that's gonna be post container if we need that later, because it contains the, not the post, but story container. And on the top, that's the page container. So that's something that Instagram has. And they round a bit the edges of the image. So they have border radius 10, something like this. And at the bottom we have also like an input. So for the story container there is also a footer that we can add right now. And the footer contains like the input. We're not gonna cover that one, but I just want to show you how to add it and to style it. Footer. So if I go there, for the footer, I can also position it absolute. Maybe I should have done the other way, the image absolute and the header and footer to be properly. But that would also work. Bottom 0. Let's do a height of 100 and a background color black. But the footer shouldn't be absolute. Footer should actually be there. And that's why where is it? I don't see it. Okay, it's at the top. Footer. Should it be? Okay. I'm gonna move back. The problem is that the image has height 100%. Instead of that, I can do flex 1. You don't want that. Oh boy, wait a second. Yeah, let me make the image, let me make that one position absolute. Still no. Okay, I'm still looking. So we have an image with everything on top and the footer is completely separate of the image. So that means that the footer will go even outside here. And the story container flex 1. Yes, so the story container text takes all the available space, leaves some space for the footer, which has the which has the background color black. And here in this footer, we will probably put, for example, an input. I said I'm not gonna do that, but in order to see that it actually works, let's do here an input that we will only style and not implement the logic of it. So for the input, I need a border radius, not border radius, border width 1 and border color gray. Okay, we have an input there. It needs padding 10 and border radius to make it circle, to make it round. Border radius 50. Okay, and the footer itself will have a padding 10, and maybe it will not specify the height because it will take as much space as it needs. And the footer will have placeholder send message, and the placeholder color will be white, just like that. And then we can start typing, and we should also do change the color on the input itself to change the color of the text that we write. So white. Okay, just like that, we have this footer as well. And our story container is this one above that has the image. The image is not absolute, but the header is absolute positioned and on top of the image with the username and anything else that it will need there. Perfecto. Okay, cool. What's next? Now we have a UI of one story. I think it is time to add some navigations between stories. What we want to do is whenever we press somewhere on the screen on the right side, we want to move to the next story. For that, we need to handle click event, press events. To do that, we have a component called pressable in React Native that handles these press events. What we will do is we will have two pressables, one for the left button and one for the previous button. Let's style them with styles dot left right button or navigation nav pressable. And let's do one more below, or maybe we're gonna focus on only one. So let's go and style this navigation pressable. And I'm gonna start with a background color red just for us to see it. If I'm gonna say that the width of this one is going to be only 30% of the screen and the height should be 100% of the screen. Okay, but we also need to make it, position it absolute to put it on top of the image, just like that. And we see that 30% of the screen here is this pressable component. And when we press on this one, on press, what we can do is we can go to the next story or previous story. Let's call this function. Let's implement this function. For now, it will simply say console warn previous. Let's do one more function like this for go to next story and console warn next. So if I press on this one, we see previous. Let's go ahead and add one more for the next story. If I simply duplicate it, it's going to put it also here on the left. However, I want to keep all the styles, except I want to position it on the right. So I will add an array here and say right 0. So now if I press here, that's going to be also previous because the on press event here should be go to next story. And whenever you have like the syntax like this, an arrow function that calls another arrow function and they have exactly the same parameters, you can simplify this by sending directly the arrow function that you need. So now it's simply, and we can go next and previous. That's cool. All we have to do is make sure that we don't have any background color red. Now we don't see the buttons, but they are still there and they are still handling press events. Now let's see, go to the next story. What do we have to do? We need to increase the story index. So let's do a set story index. Index, and we're gonna do index +1. So we're calling the setter and we're giving an update function. having the current index, we should increase it by 1. So now if I'm gonna press next, we should see that the next image loads. It takes a bit of time just because it takes time to actually load and download the image. Now if I'm gonna press one more time, we see cannot read property URI of undefined. Why? Because we navigated to the third story, but our user doesn't have that many stories there. So what we can do here is we're going to add some logic when we update. Let's make it as a function body, and this is going to be a return. The logic is going to be the following. If current index is equal, if we are currently at the last story, but how do we check if we're at the last story? We check if the current story index is equal to user.stories, the array of all the user stories, dot length, and it should be -1. Because if the index is at 3 and the item has 3, okay. If, for example, we are at the last item here for the first user, that's going to have an index 2 because we go 0, 1, 2, and the length is going to be 3. So that's why we are checking if the index is equal to the length -1. That means that we are at the last story, so we don't have to increase the index. What we have to do is we have to go to next user. We're gonna call this function. Let's go ahead and implement the function. Const go to next user, and we're gonna see what we have to do there. But here we're not gonna return anything. And yeah, we can do return 0 because we want to start from the 0 story index here. Now in the go to the next user, we're gonna start by simply increasing the user index. So set user index, we're gonna take the current index and we're gonna simply increase it to index +1. Now, if I'm gonna go ahead and click once, we're gonna see the second story, click second time, third one, and now we should go to the next user and the username at the top should change. So if I click once, the username changes, and now I can look through this user's pictures, and then I can see the last one. Perfect. So go forward works. But we can still get outside of this array when we increase the user index to a value more than that we currently have users. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add some logic here as well by checking if the index of the user that we are looking for is equal to the last user in the array of users stories dot length -1. If that's the case, I'm going to return 0 to reset it to the first user. Otherwise, I'm gonna return this one. And in this situation, we don't need an else statement because if we have a return, so it will never reach here if the if statement will go inside. So now we should basically be able to loop through them if we reach the end of a whole list. After Alex, if I click a couple of more times, I should go to my first story, and we should be able to do it again. Okay, cool, perfect. So we have a possibility to go next. Let's do the same logic for go to previous story. I'm going to copy this function from next to previous, because what we will have to do is quite similar. At the end, we're not going to increase it by 1, but we're going to decrease it by 1. And our if statement should protect us from going below 0. Because if we go to an index below 0, that will also trigger an error. So we should check if the current index is at the moment at 0. What we should actually do is go to previous user, and I will return 0 to start from his first one, because at this moment I don't know how many stories he has. Let's implement this go to previous user in the similar way to how we did go to next user. Go to previous user, set user index. Again, we are going to do -1, and we're going to check if we are at 0. Then we will go to from the other way. We're going to return user stories dot length -1 to start back from the last one. So now if I go back to Elon. Here I should go, yeah, I'm going back to my stories. Then I'm at the first one from Alex. I can go next, I can go back, and then yeah. So now all the navigation between stories, next, and back and forth are implemented. We have 4 methods. Probably you can do this in a better way in just 2 methods instead of having go to prev, next, and so on, just to update the things, but that's okay as well. Can you please also show how different Android versus iOS is in terms of the key things to just look out for, so that one would not waste time, especially for new Apple environment users? Seeing them side by side would be great. Also, I like your consistency. Keep it up. Thank you very much, Justice. We're going to run this application on Android as well to make sure it works. Okay, guys, so we have basic navigation between stories. I think it's time for us to display the story indicator at the top. Here I'm talking about these lines at the top that shows what current story we are watching. How do we do that? Well, that's gonna happen inside our header. So where is our header? The header is here and above the username. Let's go ahead here and say we're gonna have a view that will do indicator row that will contain all the indicators. Then inside here we're gonna have multiple views, simple views with style equal styles dot indicator. So we're gonna every line is going to be a view inside this indicator row. So if I'm gonna have 3 of them here, then we can go in our styles to provide some styles for indicator row and indicator itself. I'm gonna start by styling the indicator. To do that, I'm gonna give it some width like 100 and height is gonna be small. It's gonna be a line of 5 pixels or something like that. We don't see anything because we need to give it also a background color. We can start with gray. Okay, we see a line. That's already good. Actually, that should be 3 lines. If I add some I don't want to add padding to the indicator. I will add a gap on the parent, and that will add some spacing between these 3 lines. We see currently that the lines are one on top of each other. Let's put them in the same row with flex direction row on the parent container. Now they are 3 lines. They don't take the full amount of space because we have given a fixed width. What we want to do is we want the row to take full width. So I can check that if it takes full width. Yes, it takes full width. And I want the space inside the row to be equally split between the indicators. To do that, instead of specifying the width, I will do flex 1, and they will take the necessary amount of space and at the same time allow others to coexist with them. So let me add here to the indicator row maybe margin bottom 20. And at the same time, for the whole header, I don't want basically any padding at the top, because I want this view to be almost flush with the top. Yes, something like that. Now, the indicator itself, they are rectangles currently. If we want to make them rounded, we will do border radius 10. Now they are better. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Let's go ahead and highlight them. Well, no, instead of highlighting them, I don't want to render them here manually. I want to render as many indicators as stories the current user has. So that means that I'm going to have to loop through stories or user.stories.map, and for every story I will render one of these indicators. I will delete the other ones, so now we should see exactly 3, just because in our stories.js we have 3 stories here. If I'm gonna add one more, you're gonna see that it automatically adds one more line at the top. So now they are dynamic. Now I want to highlight them. To highlight them, I will simply give a white background. So I will add a conditional style here that will set the background color. And it's going to be white only if the index of the story that we're currently viewing is more or equal than the index of the indicator that we are displaying. So I will need the index of the indicator, and it's going to be white if the index is less than story index, or actually less than or equal. If that's true, our background with a question mark is going to be white, otherwise it's going to be gray. Maybe not full white, but Gainsborough, or maybe ghost white. Yeah, ghost white is better. And this one, maybe light gray. No, there is not enough contrast. Dark gray is okay. Okay, perfect. So now we are on the story with ID 0, and in the array of our indicators, only the first one is rendered as highlighted. If I move to the second one, now the second one as well, and so on, the third one, and if I go here and then I go to the next one, boom, boom, boom. How to do it? It's not very visible, to be honest. Maybe gray like this will be okay. Maybe we don't need anything here. Oh, we're gonna need something there. Okay. Look, I'm going to take not a lot of time. I'm going to only install Expo linear gradient because a gradient there will look much better. So let's simply install in our application Expo linear gradient. Come on. And we are going to render this gradient. Let's first import it at the top. And render it where? Inside the header. Inside the header, let's render the linear gradient. I will remove this one from here. And our linear gradient, where is it? I want it to be style sheet absolute fill. And now we have a proper linear gradient there at the top. I think it looks much better when it's like this. And it starts from 80% transparency, and at the end it's 0% transparent. Perfect. Maybe from 60, 70, that's good. All right, guys. So now we have header story as well. I think we can decrease the height of those to 3, just like this. What I'm gonna do next is prepare us for the animations, because at the moment, with the way that we style the indicator is one simple view, and we can only have one background. So it's either the whole indicator is gray or the whole indicator is white. We cannot have like a progress bar where, let's say, half of the indicator is white and half is gray. To do that, we're gonna have to split the indicator into a background and a foreground. So let's leave indicator for the foreground, and let's wrap it inside another view that will have the styles.indicator bg for background. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add indicator background above our indicator, and we're gonna have to move some of the stuff from our indicator to the background, such as the flex one is about background. The height is about the background, because the background is actually the whole component. The background color will always be gray, like this. And yeah, also the background indicator will have border radius 10. The indicator will only have background color white, and that's it. Background color white. And maybe also height 3, or better, height 100%. Okay, so now the indicator has this height 100%. But if the width is going to be, let's say, 50%, that's going to show as a half progress bar. Cool? Perfect. The only thing is that now the way we are going to the conditional, the logics is going to be different, because we are not going to decide the background color. Now we have the background that is gray and the foreground indicator that is white. That's it. We no longer change the colors. We only play with the width of our indicator depending on So if we want full white, we're gonna have width 100%. That means that if index is less than this one, we're going to have a 100% width. Otherwise, it's going to be, let's say 20%, but that's going to be later improved. So just like that, we updated it, and now we can have a progress-based animation that will drive this progress of moving to the next story. As you can see here, as you can see here, the one that we passed is full white and the others are at 30%. In a moment, we're gonna add actually progress there so that we can see how it moves from one to another. Okay, perfect. Overflow hidden for indicator background. Overflow hidden. If I don't want, yes, you are right. Overflow hidden. Our indicator background has this border radius 10, but the indicator didn't have it. So it's either we are adding border radius to the indicator as well, but this will add in two places on the both ends, or we are doing overflow hidden and it hides everything that overflows this component. Nice. Okay. Next step. Hello, Henry. Our next step is starting with animations. The animation of the progress bar that will automatically switch to the next story after some time, and it will be represented by this progress at the top. For that, we're gonna need Reanimated, so let's install that inside Expo. Let's go ahead and start by installing npx expo install react native reanimated. Let's do clear and start with npx expo install react native reanimated. Okay. Now let's see what other things we need to do. We must add the Babel config plugins, Reanimated plugin. Let's go ahead and add that to our Babel config under presets. Next, we need to restart. Let's try to restart our development server with clear. But I'm gonna go actually in the reanimated docs to make sure if we didn't, if there is no extra steps that we have to take. So let's go ahead and get started. Installation. Okay, then we add the plugin. Then we don't need web support. So yeah, that's it. I will simply have to do npx expo start -- clear. Let's run it on iOS. And before moving on, I will fix this error each child in a list should have a unique key property. That is coming from our app.js, from where we are rendering the story indicators. Whenever you are doing .map, the first component that you're rendering should also receive a key property, which should be unique to this story. So I'm gonna do, it's going to be a combination of, no, actually it's going to be simply index. I'll keep it simple for now and use the index as the ID. Okay. Cool. Now that we have Reanimated installed, should we look at one simple? All right, we're gonna take it step by step together. I'm thinking how to do it in an easier way. Anyway, we're gonna need a couple of things. First of all, we're going to need a shared value that will represent the current progress of viewing a story. Shared value from Reanimated, React Native Reanimated. A use shared value is a value declared on the UI state. No, it's not like this. We need progress is equal use shared value. It will start at 0. Based on progress, this value is going to go from 0 to 1. 0 to 1. Where 0 we just started watching and 1 means that we finished watching. No matter how long that means, like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, and so on. This is simply a progress 0 to 1 or 0 to 100%. Based on this progress, we're going to be able to create animated styles. Let's import use animated style. And using the use animated style hook, we can for us, when we're gonna start, like all of them will move at the same time. So let's just simply say indicator animated style is equal to use animated style, and here it's a function that returns an object. So returns an object like this. Here it's similar to a style sheet, so we can animate different properties. For us, we will animate the width, because if you see here, the width is the one that we are interested. So it should go from, it should be a percentage. For example, it can be 50%. Now, using this indicator animated style, we have to provide it to a component. But that component should be an animated component. For that, we're gonna import animated from React animated, not destructuring, but everything. And most default components, like a view, is already part of the animated, so we can simply replace a view to animated.view. I'm gonna do that on the indicator background. Actually, no, that shouldn't be an indicator background, that should be the actual indicator, animated.view. Now an animated.view can receive an animated style. Let's take this animated style, and I will replace it instead of this object with a width. So now our animated view has some static styles, but also some animated styles. As we can see, all of them are at midway at 50% because we have hard-coded the width here to 50% in Reanimated. Instead of that, if I'm going to transform it to a template string, and instead of 50, if I will use the shared value that we defined above progress, but because progress is going from 0 to 1, what I'm gonna do is I can interpolate where I can simply multiply it by 100. And the progress should be accessed by progress.value. So now our style for the indicator is going to depend only on the progress. If I go at the top where we declare the progress and we say that, hey, it's 0.5, we're supposed to see them half. If it changes to 0.7, I'm not sure why it's not changing in real life, but we're gonna see that in a moment. So we see that by changing this progress value, it changes how we see the indicators. If, however, we want to animate this, in order to animate the progress here, logically what we have to do is to animate this progress value, not animate, but start moving it from 0 all the way to till 1 in a specified amount of time. For example, in the next 10 seconds, slowly increase from 0 to 1. To do that, we have with timing that we can import from Reanimated, and with timing allows us to run time-based animations. Where will we trigger this? Let's go ahead and trigger it in a use effect when this component mounts. We're gonna change some of the things I just want for us to get started. In a use effect when the component mounts, what I can do is I can change the progress, which is our the shared value that drives our animation, and the value I will change it to 1, for example. If I do that, if it starts from 0, you'll see that it right away jumps to progress 1. We don't want to jump to progress 1, we want to move in that direction. So let's wrap the 1 into the with timing. And now if we do that, as you can see, it moves there. We can slow that down using the duration, using an option in the timing called duration. Let's add it as a variable at the top called const duration, or story view duration, equal to how long? 10 seconds, or 10 seconds multiplied by 1000 milliseconds. So story view duration, we're gonna pass it to this with timing. Now the story should start loading, and it should take exactly 10 seconds for them to reach the end. Boom, and they reached the end. Perfect, that's already good. If we simply restart, it should start over. Yep. Some of the things that we can do here is, for example, when we change the story index, either going back or forth, we want to reset the progress. So what we can do is we can do a use effect that will be executed when our story index changes. So when that happens, we can reset the progress value to 0. Now if I go to if I wait a bit, maybe I will reduce from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. The story index changes initially. Well, I can do or maybe I should simply do the other way. I will put this one no, I will bring the progress value here so that we will start the animation and we don't need the previous use effect. We will reset the animation and we will start it whenever we change the story index. So now if I change the story index, it starts again. It's not the correct one, but we don't worry about that at the moment. We simply want to see the progress bar going there. Nice, perfect. The default easing with timing is not linear. Maybe you should change it. That's correct. Thank you very much that's exactly what I was looking for at the moment. The easing is basically the function that is used for the timing. If it's linear, that means that the progress will change linearly from 0 to 1. By default, the with timing has a different easing, and this is visible where if you pay attention. Maybe I will do one big story instead of 3. As you can see, when it's in the middle, it goes faster, and when it reaches the end, it slows down. This is and now it slows down. In order to change that, we will provide to the with timing the easing, and we can access different easings methods here. From Reanimated, easing dot, let's do linear. Now that should happen linearly. Very constant progress all the way till the end. Okay. The thing is that the next step I want to do is I want to fix this issue that we animate at the same time all the bars and not the current one. What can we do? Maybe we should add this indicator animated style conditionally. I was thinking of extracting into a separate component, which probably is going to be better, and handle them separately. But a simpler way, if we are still here, is to add the indicator animated style only if the index of the story or of the indicator is equal to the story index. Only then we're going to add the indicator style. So now this one is loading. If I go to the second one is loading. And the other ones are stuck at 50. Where is this 50 coming from? I think we hard-coded it here as 50 in the indicator. This width for the one that is not currently active is going to be different depending on whether it's before or after the current story. So what we can do is we can check if index of this story is more than the story index, then I want to say that the width should be, the width should be 0. And if index is less than story index, then the width should be 100%. So everything before the current active story will have full foreground, so basically they will look white. Everything after will have 0, they will have only the background, and only the current story will have this indicator animated style. Let's look here. If index is less, Here it works. Vadim, go to the next one. Yeah, it works. So we reach here and we stop. Then we can move to the next one. It moves. It stops. And we come here. Well, you know what? When I go back, the progress doesn't restart. Only when I go forward, it starts from 0. And that's because when I go back, the story index remains 0. So I need to change this both when the story index changes and when the user index changes, right? So if I go back, it starts from 0, yeah. There are also some jump cuts. When I move to the next one, it looks like it's full first. And when it moves to 0, it has that jump. And I believe that's happening because when we move from one user to another, our indicators, they will share the same key because we are using the index as the key. So basically the first indicator from this user will share the same component with the first indicator from the next one. That's why we have these jump cuts. I will probably simply use a combined key here from the index of the story together with the user index. So if I have user dot stories, yeah, user dot user ID. Now if I restart, it still has this one. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, we are looping, so we still get there. In a real situation, we would not see the same story twice, and that small issue is not going to be present. Now it's present only because we are looping through them. Whew. Progress can be story length multiplied by 100. What do you mean? Let's see. The default easing for OK, we implemented that. It will be easier to separate indicator to component and provide their progress. It will be easier to separate indicator to component. Yeah, we could, yeah, definitely. Like whenever we already have a lot of stuff in this file. So a better approach should be to extract this one to a separate component and keep all the logic about indicators there. But I'm gonna still keep it here. Maybe at the end we're gonna look at refactoring it, but now it works correctly. Perfect. Another thing that I want to do is the next step is going to be automated next page, basically. So when the progress ends, if we reach 1, I want to move to the next story. To do that, what we have to do is we have to basically listen to these progress changes. When it arrives at 1, we need to call this go to next story. What we can do in Reanimated is we can have a reaction to if we go to advanced, use animation reaction, allows us to respond to changes in a shared value. It's especially useful when comparing values to the previously stored values. So what we can do is use this use animated reaction. And let's implement this animated reaction inside our component. I'm gonna add it somewhere here. So what value do we depend on? We depend on the progress.value. And because it's only one value, I can remove a return and I can remove the curly brackets for a shorthand auto-returning arrow function. Now we're going to have current and previous value. We can check if they are different, which means that if it's the first time, and if the current value is equal to 1, then let's do here, go to next story. Let's see if it works. I'm not doing anything. I'm not clicking anything. If we reach the end, the application closes. Perfect. For more Reanimated tutorials, subscribe to the channel. I'm your guy. What happened there? Why did it crash completely? Instead of go to next story, let's go ahead and do a console log. Progress finished. Let's run it again. Let's see what happens when we reach the end. It says progress finished. But it didn't like us calling the go to next story. Because, yes, I remember the lesson from Catalin in day 6 when we have done that one. We cannot call a function like this. We need to call it, the useAnimated reaction will be executed on the UI thread. The go to previous story is in our JavaScript thread that handles like state and so on. So by calling it here, we are trying to call a function from the JavaScript thread when we are running in the UI thread. That's why the application crashes. What we can do is we can import a separate function run on JS from Reanimated. And this function will have an X syntax in the useAnimated reaction. We're going to do run on JS. We're going to send there the function that we want to run, go to next story. And after that, we need to call what run on JS returns. So we're simply running on JS, the go to next story. Let's try again. And it's the same problem. Run on JS. Where is Catalin Miron when we need him? Run on JS. Let's see. useAnimated reaction. The value returned from this function is used as the first parameter of React argument. The React function has 2 parameters, the current value, okay, and the previous one. Use animation reaction. Ensuring you do not mutate the same value in the result function that you have used in the prepare function, as this will lead to an infinite loop. Maybe we are in an infinite loop because we update this one when the progress changes. We go to the next story. But it's not gonna be, no, it's not gonna be, because we only execute this one when, first of all, they are different and when the current value is 1. Go to next story. Let me... Oh, Catalina is here. Hello, Catalina. I was screaming for you. Vero Catalina. So, Not sure if you've been following, but we need your help. It is actually added before the declaration of goTo function. So that means that it should be simply added below the functions that I'm running there. If it's that the solution, I'd be surprised. Wait, I have to wait. Yes, it works. Thank you. Go subscribe to Catalin's channel, guys. He is the master of animations. Okay, so when it reaches the end, it moves to the next story. Okay, but if I abandon one of them, I saw there was a bug. YouTube sent you a notification. It understood that I need help. So what's the next steps? Cannot read property URI of undefined. That's the next step. Please, no bugs. I don't have resources for bugs today. Look, why are you stopping there? Come on. What I would also like to try, you know what, is hold or long press to stop the story. Or maybe we can do that later. Let me try to implement that cube animation for transitions between different users. That's gonna be fun. Okay, let me go ahead and do what? I'm a bit lost. We want the cuboid animation, or I don't know how it's called, a 3D animation when we move from one user to another. That's gonna be fun, you know? So okay, good to know about that. Thank you, Catalin. But anyway, I remember from your lesson to use the run on JS and in the animated reaction. Okay. Look, what I want to do is probably I want to start from scratch just for us to focus on that animation, and after that we will think how to introduce it here. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know, maybe, yeah, let's start extracting some of the stuff in components, and that way it's going to be easy to just comment it out. So let's create the components folder. And the first component is going to be an actual, the whole Instagram story UI. So let's create a new file, igstories.js. I'm going to move most of the things from app.js. Actually, I'm going to move everything from app.js there. And I'm going to remove some of the stuff that should be in our app.js and not in IG stories. For example, the safe area view. No, actually, I'm going to leave everything. Maybe the status bar is not here. Back in our app.js, let me simply remove everything from safe area view. We're going to get our app.js back to normal. And I'm going to remove our functions here. They are not about our application, they are for the Instagram stories. The imports can also be cleaned up a bit. So now what I can do is I can import the IG stories. I just have to rename it from app to actual export default function IG stories. The data that it imports were changed relative to this folder, so I have to go up one folder and I have to import it in our app.js. From components, IG stories. And if I simply render it, we are back to what we had before. Everything is still working, but now it's managed by this component. And what I can do is I can comment it out. And now we can focus on the animation. And later we're going to think how to integrate that in IG stories. So for the animation, what do we need? I don't know. Let's start with a simple view that will have some width. Let's calculate the width as, I don't know, 200 pixels initially. It will have an aspect ratio of 9/16 or the other way around, and a background color the view should be imported from React Native. And yeah, basically we have now a container. I will add here align items center and justify content center so that our box is in the middle. Okay, do you know a better color than simply red? I will pick something from here, from the documentation even. It's gonna be this one. Okay, so we have a view. What do we want to do is we want to rotate him in a 3D way. We can accomplish that using some transforms. For example, if I will use a transform, which is an array of different transforms, I can rotate this view on different axes. If I want to rotate it this way, that's going to be a rotation around Z axis. So 45 degrees on this axis will look something like this. And minus 45, it goes the other way. We don't want on the Z, we want this one to move around the Y axis. So if I do Y, we don't see anything changed, but actually something changed, because if I will do here 45, that it is getting smaller, and if I will reach 90 degrees, then we're gonna see that view from the side. That's why it disappeared. So this is the rotation that we want on the axis. The problem is that there is no like perspective. Like when it's 55 degrees, we don't really understand that that's a view rotated 55 degrees. We can use a perspective transform, And if you give it a value, that's going to be the perspective from which we look at that view. What should be the perspective value actually? It's that distance from the camera to the object. Is that what it means? And if that's the difference from the camera, because I imagine, yeah, if I increase it, we basically move further away from the object and the rotation looks smaller. If we go close to that object, the rotation looks like really huge. It's basically like object is here and the camera moves back and forth, and that is going to be the perspective. That's how I understand it. And should be what? I don't know. Let's try to leave it like this for now. Now our rotation looks better, and it's clear that that view is rotated. If it's -45, it's going to be the other way around. If it's almost 90 as well, we're going to be able to see this rotation. Okay, that's it. That's everything I know. Wait a second. 70 degrees. Now, talking about the transform origin that we depend on. At the moment, the rotation happens based on the center of our plane. This is going to make more sense if instead of rotating on the Y, I will rotate on the Z with 20 degrees or 45 degrees. By default, it rotates, but it keeps the center in the middle. So if I will change this value, you'll see that it simply rotates around its axis where the center is the origin of our rotation. From React Native version 0.73, a new property to the transform was added, and this is the transform origin. And it shouldn't be inside the transform. I think it's a separate one, transform origin, and by default that's center. So if we set transform origin center, that's how it's going to work. It's going to rotate based on this one. If, however, we say that the rotation should happen based on the top part of our view, now the rotation, as you can see, looks like this. It basically rotates around the top point. The transform origin can be an array of 3 values. For example, the first one is where is the origin on the X? Let me look in the documentation to not bullshit. Left, center, right. 2 value syntax. That's for, I don't know what. Yeah, the first one is X, the second one is Y. And if we use 3 values, that's going to be X, Y, and Z. For X and Y, in our case, we can leave it as center. On Y, we can leave it as center. But on Z axis, we want to rotate around the point that is behind, that is the center of a cube, right? So we have a cube. Show me a cube. We have a center of a cube. So when we rotate the cube, we should rotate around the center of that cube in order to have this 3D animation. The center of a cube will be the width of a cube divided by 2. And I think it should be minus because we want to move the center to be behind the view itself. What happened? Transform origin X position must be a number. You don't like center? Yeah, it can be in array style. I think it doesn't accept like center, it accepts percentage, so I can do 50%. And with the width here, I'm gonna move back to rotate Y, and now the transformation should look a bit differently. Let me actually go ahead and start animated this rotation like crazy with animated value. Let me do it like this. I'm going to import animated from animated. This one is going to be animated.view, and I think I can let's add here a progress. That progress is going to be a use shared value. Let's import use shared value from there. What I'm gonna also do is I'm going to define the animated styles. So const animation equal use animated style, as well imported from Reanimated. So let's define this animated style, and we want to animate there the transform. So let's go ahead and take this transform object in our animated style, and let's pass the animated style as another style to our view here, animated. Okay, now we can change the degrees here based on the progress, and I will use here like this. And the value of the rotation is going to be an interpolation. We are going to interpolate the progress dot value. It will go from 0 to 1. And when it's 0, we want minus 90 degrees. And when it's 190 degrees, I don't know. We're going to figure this out later. I just need some movement on the screen. Now we need to start moving this progress, and we're going to do that when the component mounts, or maybe on a button. I think it's going to be easier if we simply render a button here. Run. And when one press, what we are going to do is I'm going to let's call a function instead. So when I run animation, I simply want to move the progress.value to 1 using the with timing. Maybe I will reset it progress value to 0. And then move it to 1. With timing, let's import it as well. So now if I press run, nothing happens, of course. Progress value, run. On press, run animation, value, progress value, animated style, progress.value, 0, 1, minus 90, 90. Why? it's gonna be 0 here, it's gonna be here. Oh, because the button is probably on top of this animation. So style. A button cannot have style. What's going on? Bottom 50. Let's see if the button is at least pressed. Yes, it's pressed. So now the question is why the animation is not running with timing? Because our view is animated view. It returns progress. Hey Vadim, how are you? Good, good. Working. 90 degree. Come on, what's going on? If I change maybe something else like scale, X, not scale, but I don't know, opacity to progress.value. And if I press run, no, it doesn't start moving. Progress.value, change to 1. Okay, but why with timing it is not working? Couldn't determine the version of native part. Some issues with no, there is some issue here, but why? I believe, maybe, I'm not sure. But I will simply have to, because I'm using the beta version of Expo, maybe there is something not working there yet, but I'm not sure. So I would do npx expo run iOS to build the project locally, and I hope that will fix this issue. So while this is installing, probably we can work a bit more for the other stuff to think about the logic of how it will work. Or we'll probably have to wait. Hey Segun, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oh, that it's gonna be interesting because we're gonna have like multiple sites or pages. Planning the build. In a second, we're gonna be up and running. Let's go ahead and put some music while we are waiting. Well, I think you cannot hear the music for some reason. Let's go. Oh boy. We are almost 2 hours in and I have meetings in 1 minute. Let's hope that the team will understand me. Let me write them a message. So yeah, let's try to wrap up quickly so that I can join the other meetings. Also have a group coaching call today with Academy students, so that's also important. Let's see if this will work. Most probably I'm not gonna finish the animation of this cube animation. I want to give like a starting point for you to understand like how we could implement it, what properties we're gonna use, like how to use this transform origin. And then I will leave it to you to try to integrate it with the rest of the stuff that we have built today for the Instagram stories. This is complex task, generally split it 2 days. Yeah, we are covering like a very wide range, like starting from basics, like rendering images and so on. We didn't have like anything pre-made, so, and now we are getting into like a bit more complicated stuff. So we have our application built locally. Let's try to open it there and see if in this situation Reanimated will work with us. If I press run, yes, it works. So let's go ahead back here. The progress value is going to be 0. Now if I do run, it works. I don't need to animate the opacity. I'll keep it like this. I need to only do this. Maybe the duration, let's do it longer just for us to see like what's happening. So now we see how the animation goes. I think that we should not be, this is the back side of our card. I think we should not see the back side. And I'm not sure like how to fix that. React native, rotate, view, hide, the back. I don't know, like it's so disable rotation for no. hide backside of a rotated div using CSS. Maybe the CSS property, Backface Visibility. Okay, so let's try to see if we have this one in React Native. Backface Visibility false. And if we do that, should it be a string? Hidden. And now if I run, yes, we do not see the backside of our view. Okay, perfect. Think that looks quite nice. What happens if we will make this view full screen? I don't know. But yeah, maybe we're gonna think about that a bit later. Now let's think about how are we going to do this animation through multiple items. We need to somehow merge them together, right? At least two of them. So we're gonna have like one more of these, or maybe we're gonna have an array of pages. Const pages equal, I don't know, 0. Let's have pages as colors here. Give me another color. And this is going to be this one. Now, these animated views, they will be pages. So we have to loop through pages.map page. And for every page, we're going to render one of these animated views. Animated. For the color, we can use the page color. I just want to have multiple views like this. Okay, maybe they will be position absolute. And that means that they are now on top of each other. Now we will also need to keep track of the currently active page. So const page index, that's going to be a use shared. Use shared value. Maybe it's gonna actually be a state, I don't know. So initially it's gonna be 0. Page index. Now the animation for them, I think we will have to extract them to separate components, the pages. Animated page equal to this, because they will have different animations. Animated page, let's copy this animated view to our animated page here. The width we can define on top for a moment. The page color is going to be something that we receive. Page color. And the animation, we're gonna move also from our application to the page itself. It needs the progress, so the progress, should this be a value that we also receive? Let's try. Now, let's go ahead and render this animated page where we loop through all of the pages. We need the page color and the progress. But we will also need the page index, the active page index. because based on the page index, we will know which one to show here in the center. Now, when we run the animation, we change the progress. Maybe the progress shouldn't be from 0 to 1, actually. Maybe the progress, or that should be a page index float. Page index float. That will specify like the progress of moving to the next page. So it's not going to be from 0 to 1, but it's going to be from 0 to the amount of pages. So run animation. Let's see, progress here. It's not going to be progress, but page index. We don't even need the page index. We need only one, the page index float, which I will keep it named as simply page index, as you can see. So now the page index, we will send it here. We're gonna receive it, and we can use it for our values. We will also know what is the index of a current page, because with that, we're gonna understand if we are currently the one that we should display. We can get that by taking the index when we map and sending it down to our animated page. Now our animation will look as following. The page index will go from index -1 to index +1. And we need to specify how do we want the previous item, the current item, and the next item to look like. So in the output, we will also have 3 values. In the middle, we want 0 rotation. Here we want 90-degree rotation, and for the previous one, -90. Or maybe even not 90. Let's try, let's try 90. Boom, we have something. IG-story. So when we press on the button, that should be probably next or something like that. So yeah, it simply switches from 0 to 1. I can add here like more, I don't know, red, yellow, blue. And when we press on run, it should not be run, but should be next. When we do, we don't have to reset it to 0. We will do page index.value with timing towards page index.value +1. And I will actually take the math.floor to round this towards the next item. So from the green, and another lesson from Catalin was why do we see the last item as the first one, where it's not even the last one, right? Yeah, it's the blue one, we see it as the first one. Well, we can change that by decreasing the Z index depending on the index of a file of the page that we are rendering. So in the animated page, the Z index will be equal to the index, or to 100 minus index. Now this is the first one. Then we can go to the next one. The next one is green. Then it should be red. It works. Oh my God. To be honest, I didn't expect this one to work like like now. Oh my God. And all you have to do is decrease the duration here to maybe 1 or even less. And just like that, you have animation. And yeah, it looks beautiful. You can move from one screen to another. The next step would be to probably the animated page to make it not with 300, but maybe with 100. The run button is not working anymore. Animated page. Duration, no, this one is too little. And the same way we can go to the previous one. So I'm going to add 2 buttons, next, and then I'm going to add another one, previous. Go back. So go back is going to be similar to our run animation. But what it will do is it will simply do page index.value -1. So next, previously. It should be the other way around, right? Here, go back. Next. Next. Yeah, it should be the other way, and the other way in the rotation, I think. It's like this. Next, yes. Next, 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 next. Previous. Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's so cool. And now all you have to do is this animated page, go ahead and add here the children property that you will render inside your animated view. So if I will expand this one to animated view like this and put here, render here the children, what I'm going to do is in the animated page, I will send here some children. For example, these pages, instead of pages, let me do images. So I will import all stories. Let's import stories here. Import from stories, and all stories I will simply do user stories dot flat map value user, and I will do user dot stories. Now the all stories is going to be simply one array of all the stories here, and they will all have URI. That means that I can use all stories instead of pages to loop through them. It's not gonna have a page color, but it's going to be a story. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna send anything here. Maybe I'm gonna change, I don't know, black. And inside here, I'm going to simply render an image where the source is going to be URI story.URI, And for style, I will do width 100% and height 100%. What's wrong? Image should be imported from React Native. Now that container renders the image. It will have this border radius, so we can do overflow hidden. And if I go next, we see that we can move through all the stories with this animation. You can slow it down a bit to see it better. Next, 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 previous, previous, previous. Just like that, we have this animation. And maybe you can even increase the width and height for these components. But as you can see now, this animated page is quite reusable. It handles the logic of animated between screens, but what you give, what you render inside, it's really up to you. So anything that you will send as children to this animated page will be animated. So what you can do is you can import this one in our IG stories, and you'll wrap different users basically inside this component. So it's really not much left to do there. And another step is going to be to integrate gesture handlers so that when you swipe left and right, you start triggering this animation for back and previous. And that's it. That was our Instagram stories. We saw how to design and build the Instagram stories UI that looks like this right now. It doesn't need a line center. We can move through them. And also we saw how to add this cube 3D animation to go back and forth. That was it for today, guys. I have to really run, but my team is waiting in the meeting. The exact issue, index 1, index plus 1. Yeah, perspective is too low. Try card width multiplied by 2. Perspective is too low, Catalina is saying. Let's look at perspective of our width multiplied by 2. So now, perfect. Really looks nice. You can even play with the colors and add a shader so that when it goes away, it has like a linear gradient and looks like it's in the shadow. Because right now, like, I think, yeah, that would improve it. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for all your support. We still have probably 7 tutorials till the end of this series. And if you enjoy them, please subscribe to the channel down below. And I will see you tomorrow